Today's executive order will reportedly allow President Biden to shut down the border when illegal crossings reach a certain high. But Republicans, they're calling the whole thing a scam.
President Biden is in trouble politically. He's polling right up there with fungal infections. Part of the reason for that is that he gave in to the loon wing of his party, and he dissolved the southern border. Now, 5 months before an election, he has to appear to be willing to do something about it, hence this executive order. And this is one of the most cynical things that I have ever seen a politician attempt to do 5 months before an election. It is insulting, it is cheap, it is contemptuous. And the American people see that. And I hope you do too.
Well, nailed it. So why is Biden doing this? Let's bring up 3 data points that illustrate why he's doing this. Now, remember, again, he floated this for months and months. He's doing it now. Here's why. New York Times, an open-ended Gallup poll released on April 30th found that for the 3rd straight month, most Americans cited immigration as the most important problem facing the United States. Listen to this. That was the longest stretch that the issue had topped the list in the survey's 24-year history. And then they go on to say that Friday, the new polling shows it dipped to number 2, but still historic. So for a quarter of a century, this hasn't happened. But now for 3 months consecutive, immigration is the top. Pete, Reuters, I never thought I'd see the day. 56% of voters say most or all immigrants in the U.S. legally should be rounded up and deported. Wow. And again, never thought I would see this. Monmouth, 53% now approve of a border wall. This is why Biden's doing this.
Yeah, it's all politics. The timing's all politics. And ultimately, obviously, it's not going to work either. If you look at the nuts and bolts of this policy, what he's trying to avoid is Bill Maloogian and Griff Jenkins at the border with crowds of illegals behind him through the summer as we're going through conventions and into debates. That's it. That's all this is about. Because if they actually cared about the border, they would have done this at any moment over the course of the last 3.5 years. That's simply what this is. Kennedy's right. It's incredibly cynical, but people are smart. And they realize what it's about. They won't give him any credit. They won't blame Donald Trump. It may fade from the headlines, and that's all the White House wants. They want it fading from the headlines, but they know who's right on this and who's wrong, and it's certainly not Joe Biden.
Exactly. And what's unbelievable is Biden denied for so long that he had this power. He said, Congress has to act. We have to have legislation. That's the only way I can act. Let's take a walk down memory lane.
If that bill were the law today, I'd shut down the border right now and fix it quickly. Counting on the border action happened by itself, the passing it.
But Congress can't come to an agreement.
Well, they haven't yet. They haven't yet. I'm helping them. Every day between now and November, the American people are going to know that the only reason the border is not secure is Donald Trump and his MAGA Republican friends. Tell your members in Congress to show up, show a little spine, pass the bipartisan border security.
Harris, that's pretty damning.
It is damning. I don't know that we're shocked by it. And I kind of want to make a point about numbers, because the siphoning, the stealing, the pillaging that local officials and mainly blue states have done to take away resources from American citizens, to spend them on illegal immigrants, is rapacious. And Biden has put them in this position. And I would say it's going to get worse before it gets better. And it's only going to get better if the president changes. Because with this executive order, he's going to cut it to 2,500 a day encounters. That doesn't deal with all of the gotaways, the millions of people that we know are still coming illegally. He says encounters, but the main encounters are going to be the ones who are filing for asylum. So once that point gets to 2,500, so what if it's at 2,499 daily? That's still 909,000 people a year. So if the siphoning of resources for American citizens to benefit illegal immigrants here is already happening, add on another million. Add on another million with his executive order. He is unserious about fixing the problem.
Emily, you and I talk a lot about 212F, 212F of the Immigration and Nationality Act, which gives the president power to act and to stop some migrants from coming in. Well, that's the authority that we've been talking about for months that Biden's finally using. It's an authority that, yes, it was struck down by a federal court, by a district at the district level and appellate level, but the Supreme Court ultimately upheld Trump's travel restrictions based on 212F. That's the legal background. The reason I bring that up is this hour, a memo that the Biden administration has given us. They're doubling down on this legislation folly. Here's what they're saying. This is just released. Legislation is still the only way to permanently address border security and immigration reform, which is why President Biden continues to fight for the bipartisan deal and why today we are calling again on congressional Republicans to stop choosing Donald Trump and fentanyl traffickers over the Border Patrol Union and the safety of their constituents. So
that
legislation, right? Yeah. The only way to act, except we're taking action today. I just think that the American public's confounded.
Well, and I think they're disheartened and they're tired of it. They are exhausted of the wordplay that overrides what is clear and obvious. Remember, Harris, in your interview with Speaker Johnson, where he said he personally showed the president, 10 different methods of authority that he could use to stymie the flow across the border. We know exactly what can be done. And I think the other exhausting point is that we deserve a leader who goes for it, who says, here's what I'm going to do because I see a terrible problem that is killing millions of Americans and certainly contributing to the suffering of millions of immigrants. So I'm going to go for it. Let the courts tell me I'm wrong. We certainly saw that under Donald Trump's administration. And here with this administration, instead, we're subjected to someone that says, oh, I can't do that. Oh, I'm not sure. Hey, guys, I can't do it. That's not what a leader is. That's not what a commander in chief is. And the largest problem I have with this, as Senator Kennedy aptly called it, cheap, contemptuous, and insulting decision to do this at the 11th hour is that those lives lost can never be resurrected. So people like Bambi Larson and Laken Riley and Melissa Powell and her son and the millions more Americans who died at the hands of those immigrants who had been deported multiple times, who had multiple detainer or retainer requests submitted by ICE, who fled or dissolved into the system here, into the country. Those lives can't be gotten back, not to mention the millions at the hands of fentanyl, which seemingly now is of interest to our legislative body. So that's the collateral damage that is permanent, that has generational consequences. So this political decision on his part, to me, just it doesn't stick.
Part of the political decision, Carly, I believe the reason he took so long was he did not want to anger the far left. They're already angry about Gaza. They're already angry at him for any number of reasons. And it's interesting, in the background call we're now able to report on, the administration told reporters this only applies during times of high encounters, only between ports of entry. This does not apply to children. This does not ban people based on their religion, which, by the way, Trump never banned people based on their religion. It happened to be some Muslim majority countries. It wasn't a religion ban. It was a country ban based on the levels of terrorism. So my point is, they're couching this in such a way as to try to keep the far left but win back independence.
Yeah, it's all political, as Pete said. And to that point, I was laughing earlier today, thinking back to the 2020 Democratic presidential debates when all the candidates were asked if their health care plan would include illegal immigrants. And everybody's hand shot up from Eric Swalwell to Joe Biden, and then they got uproarious applause. And then because of that, everybody started answering the questions in both Spanish and English. Remember that? And I bring that up because during a presidential election cycle, political pandering knows no end. So that was then. 3.5 years later, all of the things that Joe Biden thought would be popular absolutely were not. So we're going from his hand shooting up, saying that he would include illegal immigrants in his health care policy, to this executive action today, which is political pandering at its finest once again. And what really is happening with Joe Biden is he is entering territory where he's not taking either side. So, Kayleigh, to your point,
that is
when
true.
You don't take any side, you annoy everybody. And the immigration advocates, his base that he's trying to cater, they're going to hate this. And then everybody else is going to really see it for what it is.
Yep. And never forget, in the first 100 days, he ripped up 84 executive orders on immigration. It took him 3.5 years to pick up this thing. It's called a pen. Thanks for finding it, Mr. President.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kayleigh McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.